In this video, I'll demonstrate how to make a pair of earrings based on the beautiful spiral form that you've seen me employ in other earrings. This earring is based on a new link that I recently designed, and I call it the Greek link. Why do I call it the Greek link? Because the idea came from me when looking at Greek Ionic columns. And the earring itself is a combination of the Greek link, a secondary form that is a combination of a wire coil and a loop with the addition of beads. I like the contrast between the beads and the silver wire. To make this beautiful pair of earrings, I'm going to be using my flat nose jewelry pliers, my round nose jewelry pliers, and of course, our cutters. Can't work without them. And a miscellaneous item that you've seen me use before, the tool I rigged to create the coil. That'll be used for this part over here. What is our first step? Our first step will be to measure out 8 inches of wire. So you need 2 lengths of 8 inches of wire. For demonstration purposes, I'm using nickel silver. If I was making these earrings to be worn, I'd create them out of sterling silver, or gold, or a hypoallergenic metal that's non-reactive with human skin, like titanium. Okay, good. I have 2 lengths of 8 inches. Having cut 2 lengths of wire 8 inches long, the first thing I'll do is begin to form the spirals. So, using my flat nose pair of pliers, I'm going to grab a piece of wire, hold it at its tip, and I begin to ratchet the wire in this fashion. I create a little bit of a loop, compress that loop, then I ratchet the wire to form the spiral shape. And I usually will do this for 5 complete rotations around. In other words, the spiral that I'm shaping, when it completes at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or possibly 6 wraps around, I stop there. I'm at 1, 2, 3. So I need to do it more. Hold it firmly with the plier. Four. Where are we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That could be good, but I think based on the size of this, I want to go one more time around. That's looking adequate in size, so let me keep it at that point, at the 5.5 mark. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And the inner loop now is facing up, not down. The reason why I'm keeping it at the 5.5 is the remaining length is looking short. I want to have enough to nicely form the second spiral. Let's take a measurement on that. That's good. This spiral, stopped at 5.5, leaves us with 3 inches of wire. 3 inches is enough wire to create a nice variation in the scale of the link that we're making. So you'll have one large one and one smaller one. This will be slightly larger, the one I'm making now, than the original model that I showed you, and I like that. So, let's repeat what we've just done. Take my 8-inch length, grab it like so with the flat nose pliers. Remember what I told you in previous videos. The reason why I can grab it so effectively with the very tip of my plier is I've taken my plier and with a jewelry file I gave it a little bit of a notch. See that notch? You can barely see it, but it is there. That allows me to get a firm grip without having the wires slip. There, see how nice that is? Now we'll ratchet it for a total of 5.5 times to make it the exact size of the one we just completed. One, two, three, four, five, and we're going to go around one more time. Pick up the one we just made. Almost identical. That's good. What I can do, since it's so close, is I can trim off that little excess. You know, you're talking about 1/4 of an inch, not even. Now they're identical. Before I complete these by putting in the bead and executing the second spiral, like you see here, the bead, the spiral, and everything is locked in nicely, I need to create this little mechanism right here, which is a combination of a coil, an upright, and a loop. And that's vital, because that's what holds everything in place and allows it to be attached to the ear wire, which you can make, or in this case I purchased surgical steel pre-made ear wires. So, how do we make this little thing right here? Very easy. We take this that you have seen me use in other videos, and remember how I made it. Did some pruning in my backyard. Took some of the 1/2-inch branches, drove a finish nail in it, and it's a beautiful, simple tool for making coils. Since my last video, I improved on it a bit. I drilled a hole through it that's relatively close to the nail itself. It allows me to stick the wire in and get a really nice firm grip on the wire that I'm coiling. Now I'll proceed to create my coil. So I'm going to wrap the wire around once, twice, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's good. Now before I take it off, what I'll do is grab my flat nose, compress the entire thing down. That's giving me a beautiful tight coil. And I'll remove it. Grab my cutters and trim the coil off. So we have one. Have a little bit more work to do on this, but before we get to that, let me make the second. I'll insert the wire, like we did with the previous one, into my gadget. Give myself enough excess so I can create that over there. I need enough length to be able to make that bend. And what did I say the last time? 6 wraps? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Having done it 6 times, I'll grab my pliers and compress it. Remove it from the tool. And trim it. We have 2 lengths of wire that end in a coil. Coil is been compressed. It's nicely tight and flat. Now, when studying this earring, the upright that eventually attaches to the ear wire is approximately 3/4 of an inch from the top of the coil to the loop that attaches to the ear wire. So what I'm going to do to achieve that is place my combination coil and upright on a ruler. So there we go. We can see it better. Actually, I can position my coil at the edge of the ruler and place my pliers at the 3/4 inch mark. Like so. From here to here, that length of wire is 3/4 inches in length. I create the top loop by bending the wire, wrapping it backwards around the pliers, the tip of the plier, like so, removing the pliers, positioning my cutter on the inside of the loop that I've just created, snipping off the excess. Then I like to take my flat nose again, squeeze everything down. That's looking good. Again, put the coil at the edge of the ruler and measure 1, 2, 3/4 of an inch the way up. Then I'll grab that at that point with my round nose pliers, and having grabbed the wire at 3/4 of an inch from the top of the coil with my round nose plier, I'll bend the wire like so, bend it out at a 45, and then I grab the length that's bent out and turn it up and around the tip of the plier, like that. Beautiful. It's nice. So the round nose plier is what is shaping that loop. The loop. Position it inside the newly created loop. Trim it. And I like to flatten it out and finesse it. Now I do take this one step further. I hammer my metal out on an anvil, working the metal in that fashion, hardens the metal and makes it much more resistant to bending. Here's what I mean. I have an anvil over here. Find a place on the anvil where I can position the newly created coil with its loop, and I'll very lightly tap it. I'm not pounding this. I'm tapping it. This further straightens it out. Here, let me reverse it and continue to tap. I'm careful to observe any weird bending or anything, you know. And it's going off on a slightly strange angle, so I'll take this and bring it back in. That's nice. It has a slightly stiffer body to it now. Do the same thing with the other. going to try to get that curve, stiffen that up. That'll be nice. And do that on this one. Okay. We're ready to go with both of them. So what do we have? We have our 2 coils and top loops, and we have our spirals that are in formation. Now what is the next thing we do? Next thing is we're going to add a bead to both of these, then attach one to each, and complete it by ratcheting up the other spiral. So, thing of beads here, I'm going to go with the darker beads this time. Since these have the lighter beads, it would be nice to use a darker bead. These are our wooden beads. What do we do now? We take one of the spiral forms that we've created, insert a bead, insert this that we've made, the coil and the loop. At this point, we're ready to complete forming the earring. Like we did here, we're going to ratchet this side to create another spiral. There, I created a top little bend, and now I'm going to begin the ratcheting. Very simple. It's amazing what you can achieve with simple forms. And remember, this idea came to me from looking at the Ionic column. I find antiquity to be a wonderfully rich source of visual information to explore new design possibilities. Yes, that's very nice. Bending it a little bit more upright creates a very effective angle. It'll look good when hung from a near wire. Put that one on the side. Complete the other half of the earrings. We take our coil, add the dark bead. Once the dark bead is in position, I attach that, and now I begin ratcheting to form my other spiral. With a good grip of the pliers, I bend the top and compress it. And I continue to ratchet it up to the point where I get to the coil and I can't go any further. And I'm just about there. Doesn't take long to get there. That's good. It could be corrected just a little bit, not as much as the other. But that's good. I ratcheted that around 6 times, giving me a significantly wider spiral there and a smaller spiral on top. I like the asymmetric balance that's created because of the variation in scale. So there we have it. 2 newly formed spiral earrings based on the classical Greek Ionic column. But before we attach the ear wires, there's one last thing I like to do. You saw me hammer out these forms here to give them a little bit of added stiffness. I like to do the same thing with the spirals. By tapping them lightly, it'll stiffen them and help prevent them from being pulled apart. I position my anvil. I take my tiny ball-peen hammer. This must be a 3-ounce hammer. It's a very lightweight but effective tool for this. is I'm able to gently tap my metal without deforming it. And I'll reverse it just to maintain the balance. See, not much. It doesn't take much, but it does stiffen the metal. Nice. It gives it a nice look, too. Really enhances that human handmade look that I love in this type of jewelry. Not machine made, it's handmade. That's it. I'm happy with the designs. Now the finishing touch is to add the ear wires. The ear wires that I'm going to add are sterling silver. Depending on who's wearing them, sometimes I'll only use gold, 14 karat gold, very non-reactive metal. But I'm going to look into creating ear wires for future pieces using titanium. I think that would be a very, very good way to go. Now, to attach my earrings to the ear wire, you could either open up the ear wires at this point, or I can open up my loop that I made on these. So I'm gonna open this, attach the ear wire to that, and then close that up. Why would I do that? Because sometimes purchased ear wires of this nature tend to be brittle, and you could snap off a piece of it by attempting to open it. Let's finish up. I grab my pliers and swing the loop opened, my ear wire, paying attention which way the ear wire faces. I'll explain why in a second. And I close my loop. Make sure it's tight enough so that the ear wire doesn't fall out, and there we have it. A nice earring. So which way does the ear wire face? The ear wires should be attached so the earrings face the same direction when being worn. I'll line up the earrings to determine which way they should fall, and that'll help me figure out the position of the ear wire. So this ear wire should be faced that way. That's simple enough. Now I'll take my earring, open up the loop, make sure I'm adding it correctly, attach it to the ear wire, and close it. A new pair of earrings, a new design, and it was a lot of fun making it. I hope you enjoyed watching the video. Bye now.